You're ready. Thank you,
Good
Brian.
morning. Thank you so much for having me. I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to get to know one another. The opportunity exists to make St. Johns County even better than it already is. And having been a product of St. Johns County, grown up here, went to elementary school, middle school, and East High School, and now back here raising my family, having the opportunity to own a small business here in our community, I know firsthand that St. Johns County is the best place to live, work, and play in America. And I'm excited to be a part of making it even better. That being said, I know we face some challenges in St. Johns County, and over the last couple of years, the unique challenges that the economy has presented to our community have to be dealt with on a very proactive level. And given that, one of the reasons why I've gotten into this race is because I'm frankly frustrated with the same old coming from St. Johns County. Far too often, we are told as constituents and citizens of St. Johns County why we should believe what we believe, what we should believe, as opposed to having our opinions solicited, having a county commission and staff that sits back and proactively takes notes as you are right now, and learning about the opinions and the ideas that our citizenry has here in St. Johns County. Given that, I think the frustration that drove me to get into this race really lies on a couple of different levels. First of all, it's that us versus them mentality that we have here in St. Johns County. I believe that government should work with the people and understand that they are elected to represent the people of St. Johns County. However, every citizen in St. Johns County is the boss of the county commission. They're in charge, and that's why we have local government to begin with. Given that, I think we've gone astray at St. Johns County, and we've created this adversarial relationship that relies very heavily on staff opinions, on elected officials. Individuals in our community are sometimes shunned, told why their opinions are not valid, and oftentimes, in a case in point, the latest millage rate increase we experienced last year, when what I believe were excellent opportunities to work together with citizens at meetings, we took that us versus them mentality. And that's minorly frustrating for me, and that's driven me to get into this race. Now I touch on tax increases in St. Johns County. You know, everybody's experiencing difficult times. Economically, we have to deal with a lot of challenges. Now, that sometimes presents itself as such a minor thing as, do we take a vacation or a staycation? But kitchen table budgeting is always an issue. I always tell people that Ronald Reagan said it best: a recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose your job. We have far too many depressions in St. Johns County. And with 4 tax increases proposed in the last 5 years, enough's enough. We need to find opportunities in our budget, and I believe the flexibility and the opportunities exist in our budget to make the right decisions and cut back for the time being. But I think the opportunity to expand and be open to business in St. Johns County is important. Far too many projects have gone by the wayside here in St. Johns County for one reason or another, but it all goes back to the County Commission voting against excellent development, excellent growth here in St. Johns County when it comes to businesses. Now what that means, that's jobs for our citizens. That's opportunities to increase quality of life. For example, I live off 210 in the northwest end of the county. And I have to drive to Duval County or all the way down to St. Augustine to buy a piece of hardware. Now, to me, that's a quality of life issue. And my neighbors and friends that live in that area agree with me. We'd like to spend our tax dollars and our disposable income and our income here in St. Johns County as opposed to take it outside the county. And the opportunity to reap the benefits of the sales tax revenue would also benefit our county. Finally, I am a firm believer that as a representative of the citizens of St. Johns County, you have to be open to the opinions of other individuals. That's why I prominently display my cell phone number, my email address. I tell people, 2 a.m., if it's important enough for you to call, it's important enough for me to pick up the phone and listen. And I want to have that type of responsive government in St. Johns County, regardless of Republican, Democrat, Independent. I think it's important. As for me, I touched on my background briefly earlier. My family moved here when I was 8 years old. We were the 13th house in what is now the monstrosity of the Jointon Creek Plantation. Back when it was an 8-hole golf course because there was an eagle's nest on number 6. And I've seen, especially northwest St. Johns County, but St. Johns County in general, prosper and grow over the years. I had an opportunity to be a student at Jointon Creek Elementary, Webster Elementary, Murray Middle School, Switzerland Point Middle School. I was in the first 7th grade class there. And then go to Nice High School. I wouldn't be the man I am today without the opportunities that came from our school system. From JROTC with Captain Jack Williams and Commander David Reichenberg, to the opportunities that existed to have dual enrollment classes through St. John's River Community College and graduate high school with 48 college credits as I went to the University of Florida. The opportunities that St. Johns County provides its students and its school system are immense, and they need to be kept that way and enhanced to keep up with the marketplace. Went to the University of Florida and was a political science major. Thought I was heading to law school. I graduated University of Florida in 1999 after 2 years of study. Again, thank you St. John's River Community College's dual enrollment program. Decided to take a left-hand turn and came back to Jacksonville, became an insurance agent with New York Life Insurance Company. And after 9/11, took an opportunity to leave the insurance and financial planning realm and took a job with Johnson & Johnson as a pharmaceutical sales rep. So where do you send Gator and his new wife that met at the University of Florida? Well, naturally, Knoxville, Tennessee. So my wife and I headed up to Knoxville and spent 5 years up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Had the opportunity to interact with a lot of wonderful people. Had an opportunity to complete my MBA from Liberty University at that time, and became a national sales trainer with Johnson & Johnson. And then left Johnson & Johnson in 2006, beginning of 2007, and came back here to St. Johns County. Came back because our daughter had been born and our son was on the way, and the opportunity presented itself to open a small business there in our community. So Station and I own a company called Press for Time, which is a concierge dry cleaner. We pick up and deliver at businesses and homes, and we provide the customer service end of the business. And I'm a big believer in customer service. During that time, I was, and I still am, pursuing my PhD. I'm almost done. I have just my dissertation left. I say just, but so the opportunity presented itself to take some adjunct professorships at St. John's River Community College, DeVry University, Everest University, as that supplemented my studies and my PhD and provided the income that I needed to continue without taking student loans. And really fell in love with the concept of changing students' lives and impacting students. So as a business professor, I would go in on a part-time basis, teach class. The opportunity presented itself to be the chair of the business department at Everest University, and I jumped on it. So for the last 3 years, I've been the chair at Everest University. I have the opportunity every day to impact students' lives by helping them with business plans. Again, providing the customer service to my customer, the student. And it's that type of customer service that I want to bring to St. Johns County government. Again, I want to be the person that people call at any time. I want to be the point of contact that individuals know that they can, number one, have their opinions listened to, and number two, have action taken in a proactive and problem-solving oriented manner that helps them to resolve the issue in what would be their best interest and the best interest for St. Johns County. So I, as a candidate, believe that, that we need to bring customer service back to St. Johns County, and that's why I'm in this race. My wife Stacia and I, and our 2 kids, Jillian and Andrew, are all on board with this concept. It's a team effort in my household, and I look forward to serving the people of St. Johns County and more immediately taking any questions you all may have for me.
Okay, let's start with the millage rate since you brought it up.
Certainly.
Why you said motivated you to get in the race. What was your objection to the millage rate?
Frankly, I believe that there were issues brought up. Number one, we have almost $50 million in reserves in St. Johns County. Number two, that there were other opportunities that we could have amended the budget, cut back on some of the programs that we have without impacting customer service at libraries and other things like that, which I know are important. But there would have been better ways to manage our money, less legacy costs, etc., to a point where we didn't have to raise the millage rate as much as we did. And my frustration lied in the fact that that we had a series of town hall meetings where the county was asked, point blank, citizens were asked, what is your opinion? Would you rather have no millage rate increase and have cuts in some of these services, or would you rather have millage rate increases and then have the quote, quality of life issues, as the county had put it? I believe that that at the county administration building, they had already made up their mind on this issue, that we were going to have a millage rate increase no matter what. And I think the suggestions that were brought by citizens such as myself, concerned citizen groups such as the Tea Party, the Republican Party, were dismissed out of hand. And frankly, I don't think that's responsive government. I think there's a better way to go about this.
Okay, so about $30 million, right, Peter, for the millage? That's for the millage?
I think that's what they're...
Yeah. So that would have, you'd have suggested they take the reserves from $50 million to $20 million?
I would have suggested taking a good portion of that $30 million out of reserves. The whole thing, probably not. I think with regards to accounting principles, they want us to keep approximately $22 to $25 million in reserves just to maintain our bond rating in St. Johns County. However, I think a large chunk of that could have been made up from not only the reserves money, but money, the $12.6 million check that JEA was pending in St. Johns County that was conveniently left out of the budget meetings and was kind of an after-the-fact discussion that wasn't factored in. I think if the public had that knowledge, we would have been a little bit better off and not had the 0.56 mil increase as opposed to the way we went.
The county manager phrased it basically as a quality of life question. He said, we can give you anything you want. We can give you, basically what you have now, plus these things in the millage, which include the 800 megahertz system and
Sure.
firehouse and other things. Or we can cut it back. And one of the examples they gave was cutting back on parks. Some people said it was, he was crying uncle, and it was not a legitimate argument. What's your take on that? Was he an honest broker in that?
I believe that the way if you refer to Parks and Recreation, those dollars that are there, the way that the county commission and the administration brought in children to the meeting, called an evening meeting, which I'm in favor of. I think we need to start having evening county commission meetings. One commissioner told me 3 months prior to that, I will never have county commission meetings in the evening if I'm still on the board. They call an evening meeting, bring kids and parents and concerned individuals into the meeting, allow them to make statements, and then they all leave. I think that was grandstanding. I think it was not fairly dealing with the citizens of St. Johns County, because the individuals that they brought in, these youth sports leagues, write sizable checks to the county to help keep the lights on. And these students and these kids, they pay to play. And to threaten to shut off their lights if they don't support a millage rate increase, I don't think the county was being an honest broker in that particular instance.
You've referred to tax increases.
Yes, sir.
The county would argue the millage rate increase was not a tax increase. Would you argue that it was a tax increase?
I would.
Okay. Their argument is that for most people the millage rate increase is more than countered by the declining property rates, so your taxes are still going to go down for that portion you pay to the county, just not as much. So how is the tax cut a tax increase?
Well, you're talking percentage of the value of your home. So if I told you that I was selling you a Big Mac for $10 and the sales tax is 6.5%, and then I sell you the Big Mac for $5 and the sales tax still remains 6.5%, you're still paying that percentage of the value of the item that you've purchased. Now, if I told you that you can pay 6.5% on $10 or 8% on $5, I believe that's an increase, because you've taken a bigger percentage out of people's homes. The value of homes, unfortunately, is declining in our county right now. To put a positive spin on it, I say St. Johns County is on sale. However, given that marketplace, citizens are being asked to shoulder a bigger and bigger burden from a tax perspective. And I believe that's because we have only 10% of our ad valorem tax base in St. Johns County that's coming from commercial tax. If we were to expand our business tax base, we wouldn't have to take a bigger and bigger percentage of the value of people's homes. Number two, I think it's it's fair to point out that it would take a very big move to roll back the millage rate increases once property values go back up, which they will go back up. It's just going to be a matter of time at this point. So again, you're taking a larger percentage of the value of somebody's home, you're asking them to shoulder a bigger burden. That's a tax increase.
Just to point out that the County Commission 3 years in a row, 2005, 6, and 7, lowered the millage rate when property values were going up.
They did, and that was a very, very big move on their part. However, our millage rate is back up higher than it ever was. And given that, you look at the percentage of millage rate that is being taxed on homes, it's higher than it ever has been in St. Johns County.
You mentioned increasing the commercial industrial base. I believe it's actually 11% of the county's overall budget. All the developers that come in all seem to have one or two-pronged thing. Some commercial, industrial, some houses. How do you increase that percentage of industrial commercial if you continue to permit approved new houses? We already have, used to be about 70,000 houses, I believe. I don't have the exact number. I believe it's about 50,000 homes approved but not built in the county. So how do we increase that ratio from 11% of what I believe people say should be 20 to 25% of the county's tax base and still keep approving homes? How do we do that?
Well, you know, when somebody comes in and they're proposing one of these PUDs, which is a very stringent process. I'll take the Turnbull PUD that was proposed off State Road 16 as an example at this point. Turnbull PUD originally proposed about 150,000 square feet of commercial.
112,000?
No, it was rolled back to in negotiations with the PZA. The original plan was almost 150,000 and almost 700 rooftops. In negotiations with the PZA, it was rolled back to 112,000, and the number of rooftops were reduced. And in that negotiation with the PZA, I believe we found a good, happy balance for St. Johns County. To have a captive clientele for the stores and offices and other things that are going to be in a community, I think is important. And what it does is it allows the free market to dictate the number of homes, the number of commercial developments, etc. But what it does, and this is, I think, overlooked in our community right now, is it reduces trips on roads. Because if I can stay within my contained community to do my shopping, to go to work, etc., I'm not having to increase the number of trips that I have on the road. I think this is an important and yet very overlooked aspect of proposals in St. Johns County right now. But as I say before, the PZA, through the negotiations, approved this and went to the County Commission and then was, again, voted down. This is jobs for our community. It's an opportunity, and I wouldn't say an unchecked opportunity because, again, in negotiations with the Turnbull folks, the PZA brought it to an acceptable level for the county. My question is, why do we continue to dismiss out of hand development in St. Johns County to a point where I talk to people who are trying to bring businesses, not just big box, but medium-sized small businesses and commercial opportunities to St. Johns County, and they say almost to a person that, hey, I'm just not going to build in St. Johns County. That's how we have the Coles off I-95. That's how we have the big development just over the Duval County line, and we're missing the boat in St. Johns County. The
Turnbull PUD was turned down. We've asked every county commission candidate who's come in whether they would vote for it or against it. And they all have said they would have voted against it for two reasons. One is that the people who the backers behind it were not financially in a financial position to develop it. They were on the edge. And two, that they were proposing to build the houses first and not the industrial commercial. And they thought that was the wrong way to go. How do you respond to those comments by the other candidates?
I believe, with all due respect to the other candidates, that their statements are inaccurate. I think we need to bring businesses to St. Johns County. And when we've looked at a plan like Turnbull, I would have voted for that all day because, again, it was a negotiated development. If they wanted to change the way that the order in which things were built or the way things were built, then why did the PZA approve the plan? The PZA approves the plan. It goes to the St. Johns County Commission, and the Commission dismisses it. To me, that's bad business, and you're sending a signal not only to the folks that have developed Turnbull, but folks who are interested in developing other commercial ventures in St. Johns County. The 6 Mile Gang comes to mind off of World Golf Village. You're sending a signal to these individuals that, hey, we're not going to want to build in St. Johns County because they're just too hard to deal with. And to me, that negatively impacts, and that goes to the fact that the percentage of commercial inputs into our ad valorem tax base are low at this point. Numbers don't lie.
I get that. I still don't have the understanding of how you view is how you increase the percentage of industrial commercial while still approving houses. If you looked at Turnbull, it's about 50-50, right? Industrial, commercial, and residential.
But the commercial tax inputs would have far exceeded the residential tax inputs.
But how are you going to increase the ratio if you keep building houses at 600 houses? That's a lot of houses.
Sure.
Or rooftops. I don't know if the houses or condos or what.
112,000 square feet of commercials is certainly a larger percentage of the tax value that would have been coming to the county, not only from ad valorem tax base, but from sales tax base. And the opportunity would exist to increase the amount of revenue coming into St. Johns County and do it in a free market way that's not dictated by government, but yet allow people to come into the community and say, okay, this is where we'd like to build, this is our proposal, we've negotiated with the PZA, and this is how we're going to do it. But again, the more commercial we bring to St. Johns County, and again, it would have been a higher percentage of the tax base as opposed to the residential that was proposed within Turnbull. That would have helped to increase that 10, 11, it depends on who you ask and whether you're including timber. I've heard numbers as high as 13% if you include a lot of the timber. But the opportunity exists to increase that number and get above that 20% mark, which is going to relieve the burden on residences.
Were you here in 2006?
I was.
Okay, well, so you may recall the election was sort of a sea change election for the county commission. Basically, 2 commissioners were voted out, one who had never rejected a development plan and one who rejected 2, but only when the election was ahead of her. Basically, there was a pushback from the community saying, "Whoa, we don't." At the time, there were 70,000 approved houses not built, and so people said, "Whoa, enough! Let's stop this."
No,
and now, of course, the pendulum has swung the other way. We're in a deep recession, or we're still lingering from the after effects of the deep recession, and there's very little house construction going on. But it's very clear that there has to be a balance somewhere, because otherwise the pendulum is just going to keep swinging back in extremes. How do you seek that balance? Really, the balance comes between property rights and the rights of the group. And the group, the community, in 2006 said, hey, we've had it with all this house construction.
Sure.
But you have the other side, the people, hey, I own the land, it's my land, as long as I follow your rules, why can't I build houses? So how do you find that balance?
Well, I think you take a free market approach to that. Had we looked at 2006 and the opportunity that whether we approved development or not approved development in 06, let's look at Nocatee. I mean, frankly, we're just not building at this point. The market's going to dictate when we build, where we build, how much the homes are worth, etc. I think by dictating from a governmental perspective, or as you put it, from the PAC group mentality, where people build, I think that's restrictive. And I lean more towards the property rights side on this one, frankly. However, I think being able to develop a community in an intelligent way, and again, doing things for the right reasons, environmentally, are we providing the services that our citizens want at this point? I think that's going to help us build a stronger community, because we're going to be more proactive and listen to the needs of our citizenry.
Okay. You made the argument, you started out and you just made it again, that the county commission needs to listen to the citizens.
Yes. Citizens
spoke in 2006, they said enough, we don't want any more houses. Now that it's changed, well, when houses start to come, that dynamic will return. It's just the way it has been in St. Johns County.
Certainly.
It goes back and forth. So you're saying basically when that returns, don't listen to the citizens?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think the opportunity here exists for everybody to have their input and the opportunity to get what they want out of this process. And that's where I think being more open and less argumentative with citizens is important. We have town hall meetings on the budget last year. Unfortunately, we're not having them this year. But we've had some great town hall meetings last year when some great suggestions were made by citizens. And rather than county commissioners sitting back with a pad of paper, taking notes and listening, as I believe they should have and as I would do, they decided to be argumentative. And in certain cases, it almost became physical. That has no place in our community at this point. We rather need to work together. This is a team effort. You know, again, I take things from a business approach. You know, so I'm a big fan of the free market. I'm also a big fan of building consensus and leading. And leadership comes through customer service, being an honest broker, and having the opportunity to bring everybody to the table, have everybody state their opinion, come up with the best solution, and move forward. And frankly, we just don't have that right now in St. Johns County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Frank. Oh.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to see an example of the us versus them mentality you mentioned before. I went through almost every town meeting, not every one, but the things that started the us versus them mentality were the people that insisting, it wasn't just the Tea Party, but there were others, insisting that certain financial facts were true when the county knew that they weren't, like the $50 million reserves. They didn't just have $50 million sitting in a bank account. They explained several times how these are all apportioned to different funds, and they just can't spend them to cover anything they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that they kept bringing up was the change, how you can reduce the budget to save that much money. But they couldn't do that either, because they explained it several times. So the us versus them mentality started with people bringing those ideas back over and over again. So I guess there was a sense of frustration in the county. Because I could sense it myself. The question has been asked and answered, and that question's asked again. Why can't you do it this? Why can't you use the reserves? So that's what, it wasn't just the county just beating down on the residents, but I wanted to see, is that what you saw there, or am I seeing something different than you saw? You were there.
Yeah, I was there, and again, the sense that I got from the budget meetings last year is while Mr. Iannucci proposed it as you can have it either way, I think they had their minds already made up when they walked in that door that we were going to have a millage rate increase. And it seemed to me that very valid questions still remained unanswered. And I talked to several people, not only in Tea Party groups, but other citizens who grew very frustrated with the process because what they saw, as opposed to the good faith effort of commissioners to sit back and take notes, whether they agree or disagree. Again, discretion is the better part of valor in certain instances. They saw people having arguments and becoming very defensive in these meetings, and we saw it from many commissioners. Frankly, I think there's a better way to do this. I think there's a more calm, more fact-based method that we can use here. And frankly, as a citizen, I don't believe I was privy to all the facts. I hear from commissioners time after time, well, if you knew the whole story, then you would agree with me. Well, that's great. Tell me the story. And again, I think that's where we're missing the boat. And I think that's where we as a county need to become more informed citizens. And so that's my frustration. And adding to the us versus them mentality we saw at the budget meetings, we continue to see this on many different issues. It seems to be more political posturing than anything else. I read an article, I believe you wrote it, Peter, about right about the beginning of this year that Mike Iannucci was going to be sitting down with staff to set the vision for St. Johns County. I'm sorry. Staff and county administrators don't set the vision for St. Johns County because they're not the elected officials that are responsive to citizens. Rather, I think the county commission sets the vision for St. Johns County and staff executes that vision. And I think that's an important line that we need to be very cognizant and not cross.
So I think you're leading into the position that the county manager, county administrator, and staff are really running the county commission's decisions.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent. I don't believe that there's any nefarious activity that goes into this. I just believe that, due to a number of different factors, lack of leadership and courage of conviction on the county commission, sunshine laws which prohibit county commissioners, which are well-intentioned, however, do put handcuffs on individuals from communicating their positions, as opposed to getting a briefing from a staffer that says, well, the other commissioners agree with this. I think it provides an opportunity for county administrator and for staff to have more say than I believe that they should in policy making in St. Johns County.
So that leads back to my question,
Yes,
who's
ma'am.
leading the county commission into decisions? You mentioned that, you read Peter's story and it said the county administrator and staff were setting the vision. You think the county commission should, so.
Absolutely.
Do you think that the county commissioners understand that role at this point?
I don't think so. No, I think the way I've heard it described by some county commissioners is that they're simply a board of directors that hire a CEO. I think a county commissioner needs to be more involved than that. And the opportunity presents itself for strong leadership at this time in St. Johns County, which we do not have on our current county commission.
Okay.
You have,
Yes, sir.
other than housing and industry, what is your vision for St. Johns County? What do you see when you're standing on the high hill and looking down? What do you see as a vision? Do you want us to be more, more green space or more development, or how would you
That's a great
how would
question.
you plan it yourself if you were the master chess man?
Well, if I was the master chessman, the great guru of St. Johns County, I think the opportunity presents itself to have an amazing community that caters to a lot of different needs. We have 5 distinctly different geographical areas to St. Johns County. Northwest St. Johns County being more younger, family-oriented, but individuals that often work up in Duval County and in Jacksonville and more of a bedroom community type of atmosphere. We have Ponte Vedra, which is more of an established community and has for a long time been a financial engine due to the net worth of the community. We have Hastings, which is largely rural. We have St. Augustine South and Crescent Beach, which are struggling with issues right now about beach access and these issues that we're dealing with. And then we have the city of St. Augustine itself, which is a great hodgepodge of history and art. I always tell people I'm a history buff, but I come by it honestly. I grew up in St. Johns County. So I think we have an opportunity to cater to the needs of several different groups. I think by bringing the commercial and the industry to St. Johns County, we're bringing jobs, and we're not shipping the opportunities to Duval County. What that does is it creates an added tax base for St. Johns County that we can enhance not only our prospects from a tourism perspective, which is a spectacularly booming industry in St. Johns County, but we can also attract more white-collar jobs, and this one begets the other. So my grand vision for St. Johns County is truly to be the best place to live, work, and play in America. And we've got such a great start. We've got the Hall of Fame. We've got the TPC. We've got the fort. We've got all of the historical aspects of St. Augustine, which I've lived here for years and I haven't seen everything. The amazing opportunities that we have as a community to be that one-stop shop, to live, work, and play, and really be, that shining city on a hill. I hate to quote Reagan again, but that example of how it's done correctly, because we can have people that live here, that work here, that stay here and learn from our community and take from all of these great opportunities that we have. This truly is an amazing place, y'all. I mean, it's I am so proud of my community, and I continue to say that if we were to portray that and let more of these businesses know about the opportunities here in St. Johns County, that we could attract so many people for the right reasons and just enhance our community. top down.
One of the things we talk about, or has been mentioned, and you bring it up as well, everybody does, and that's the need for commercial industrial development in the county. And one of the complaints has been the onerous permitting process, impact fees, et cetera, et cetera. The current commission will tell you that that's been streamlined. The permitting process has been cut by 50%, and impact fees are no big deal to most of the folks that are coming in. What's your view on that part of the development process, the impacting the permitting? What would you change? What are your views of that?
Well, let's start with impact fees. Impact fees make us uncompetitive in our marketplace. It's more expensive to build a home. It's more expensive to start a business in St. Johns County. That puts us at a competitive disadvantage when compared to individual communities in our neighborhood, Northeast Florida. So that sets us back. Now we're in pretty deep with this impact fee issue, and this is not something that we can just turn off right away. I don't have illusions of saying tomorrow, no more impact fees. However, phasing out and putting a plan in place to make certain that we phase out these fees to make us more competitive is certainly the way to go. And I think over a 5 to 10 year plan, I think we can make a big jump towards that. Next issue, permitting. First of all, the regulations in St. Johns County, again, are more onerous than our neighboring communities. It's more difficult to start a business. It's more difficult to build a home. We talk with builders, whether it be your small builders who are dealing with contractor services, and developer services at the St. Johns County level, whether it be somebody that wants to do a small modification on their property. The fees and the time that it takes and the time that elapses for permitting process in St. Johns County is far too long. And again, this takes me back to customer service. If we were known as the community that had individuals that were proactively providing customer service to our developers, our builders, our homeowners that wish to add additions, and not having this long, expansive time for approvals and permitting, which I've heard horror stories over the last year and a half as I've been on the campaign trail. If we didn't have these type of impediments to growth in St. Johns County, I believe we'd be a lot farther along. Our current administration has taken steps in the right direction. However, I think it takes, again, leadership from a county commission level, going into the permitting office, interacting with the customer, finding out what I can do for you as a county commissioner to help expedite this process. Not because I'm playing favorites, but it's because this is what I do for every person that comes into that office. If they need my help, they have it. And again, that's being a good public servant. And I believe that we're lacking at this point. We just don't have that type of mentality.
Let me play devil's advocate on
Sure.
impact fees. If they lower the impact fees on new housing, one, it makes the house cheaper.
Sure.
So it means, well, you a business professor, know that lower price, the demand's up, we're going to have more houses.
Sure.
And somebody's going to have to pay for those roads, somebody's going to have to pay for the infrastructure that the impact fees now pay for. So one, does lowering impact fees create more homes?
Again, I think we have to be careful in making a blanket statement on that. I think it goes back to the market conditions. At this point, if we lowered impact fees, it would lower the price of homes. Would it create a few more homes? Quite possibly. However, are we at a point right now where people are doing a lot of building? No, I don't think so. Number two, we talked about the aspect of needing the roads and the infrastructure. And as opposed to looking back and saying, okay, initially you have to pay this fee, we're not looking forward and talking about the impact that the taxes are bringing from not only millage rate, but bringing people to our community that are going to spend dollars and add to our tax base in St. Johns County. I think if we were to look forward and understand that we would be bringing more dollars into our community, I think we could do without the impact fees and be more competitive.
Well, you're correct that you can't get rid of them like that.
Absolutely.
You're correct in that. But I'll just give you the philosophical argument, because you've heard it, I'm sure, many times.
Certainly.
One argument is, you, the new person coming in, you're the one putting cars on the road, putting kids in schools, requiring lights, so you should pay for it. The other argument is, hey, I've lived here for 50 years or whatever, now all of a sudden my taxes are going up because I have to pay for the new guy, and the new guy, because he's not paying impact fees, isn't paying for it. I mean, it's a philosophical debate, and it appears, where do you stand on that?
I'll take option C.
Which is?
which and I don't mean to be difficult, Pete, I apologize, but I think option C is enhancing our tax base from a revenue standpoint by bringing sales tax revenue to our community, by bringing more revenue because you are paying taxes on a home that was on previously undeveloped land. By enhancing our tax base and growing from that aspect, I think we're going to find that we're going to have more money in the St. Johns County coffers. And more money in the coffers allows us to have those projects and other things that we need here as a community. And as our current county commission puts it, quality of life.
Okay, let's talk about impact fees on industrial commercial. As you know, if you're bringing in McDonald's, you pay the impact fees.
Certainly.
Because they don't create great jobs. They make great jobs, but not great jobs. But if you're coming in and you're bringing in an office for 10 astrophysicists that pay $200,000 a year, you won't pay impact fees because you pay it up front, but they'll give it to you back in tax credits. So you don't pay it. So what's wrong with the system which, if you bring in high-paying jobs, that you basically pay the impact fees and get it through the back door? So in essence, it's a wash. You don't pay it. But if you're bringing in low jobs, jobs that yes, somebody has, but don't increase the average wages and aren't the kind of jobs that are generators of good commerce, because those people don't have the disposable income to go to the fancy restaurants and buy fancy homes. What's wrong with that system which they have now?
I think because it plays favorites. Frankly, because we're playing God, so to speak, in saying that one development or one particular commercial entity is better than another. Allows the county to be more manipulative and get away from that free market aspect. I think what we're missing here is, you use the example of a McDonald's. While it doesn't create the high-paying jobs, however, I'll tell you, it provides jobs for people in our community. People who are otherwise unemployed, have low skill. And in addition, you're also creating the sales tax revenue, and you're bringing what I would call a quality of life aspect to a community. Because, again, if you're craving a fast food burger, how far do you have to drive to do it? How do you have to go to a different location, to a different county? Again, I think quality of life goes beyond bike trails and parks. While that's a major part of it, I think quality of life is, where can I purchase clothes for my kids to go back to school? My wife and let me finish this point because I think it's key. And thank you. My wife and my mother-in-law went school shopping for our kids, and where did they go? They went to Duval County. Why? Because that's where our mall is, the Avenues Mall. We don't have that type of service in St. Johns County, in the northwest portion of our county, and unfortunately we're losing out. I'm sorry.
I'm hearing what appear to me to be conflicting messages from you. In one, you're a strong advocate of the free market. I get that. In the other, you're saying basically let the market dictate. And then the other thing you said, hey, this commission needs to listen to the people more. Well, basically what happened in 2006, people said stop. 70,000 houses is enough. So that's a case where the free market said, hey, we'd like 70,000 houses. And a lot of people saying, well, we don't want 70,000 new houses. So if they listen to the citizens, they're going to say, well, we need to stop this. If they listen to the free market, we'll get more houses. I'm trying to find out where you... It seems to me an intellectual conflict here.
Let's go back to 2006. Let's say we approved another 150,000 homes. Again, how many of those homes actually would have been built?
In 2006? It takes a while to build them, but if the economy had stayed strong, we'll have them. But now those houses are still
The economy didn't stay strong.
Yeah, but
let's look at Nocatee. They're approved from here to Kingdom Come, and one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Florida, but they're still lagging behind where they wanted to be at this point. We could have approved as many houses as we want, but the free market dictated the economic downturn that our nation found, and we can get on to that point, but I believe that's a national issue, nothing we can impact here at the county level. based on that, I think we would have ended up in the same boat. So we're talking semantics at this point. You know, my opinion is a more responsive government doesn't necessarily mean a more onerous government. It means staying out of the way.
Okay.
Let me ask about, you talked about trying to go to the budget to reduce expenses rather than raise millage rates. And one concept that's been brought up is more privatization of function, of county function. I guess it's a twofold question. Number one, where would you go to find those expenses to reduce? And number two, do you see opportunity in privatization of function?
I do see opportunities. Our county government has recently privatized some of the mowing services here in St. Johns County. That's again save some dollars for our community. I think that's a step in the right direction. Privatization is not by any stretch of the imagination a godsend, for lack of a better word, I suppose. It's not going to fix all problems. The issues have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, and I think my criteria with regards to privatization is fairly simple. Number one, is it going to save the taxpayers dollars? Number two, is it going to impact level of service? So that's a big issue in our community. Let's talk about privatization of ambulance service for a minute. Something we need to look at. Sure, no proposal is off the table. However, is that going to negatively impact quality of service in our community? It very well could. I certainly don't want to be a bell cow for that type of plan. And number three, what has worked in other communities? Again, I don't want to be a bell cow for a new and novel approach. I just want to take the best practices that other people have used in other communities in our nation and bring them to St. Johns County and be open to that type of privatization. I don't want to be the grand professor that's doing the experiment, but I do want to take the best ideas from our community and from our nation and bring them to our community.
Let me ask you about the sales tax issue up in the Northwest. Because of the zip code.
Yes, ma'am.
32259 is the Jacksonville zip code. And when you plug that in on an online sales, you automatically get a 7% sales tax charge. And for years, county commissioners from that area say, oh yes, we've got to do something about it, we've got to do something about it, because it's lost revenue.
It has.
So what do you know about it, and what would you do to advocate to get that sales tax into St. Johns County?
Well, Mark, I think it went a long way, as opposed to Jacksonville, Florida 32259, to calling it St. John's, Florida 32259 in the official postal registry. That went a long way to fixing the issue because awareness is there. However, I think from a consumer perspective, it's important for individuals to understand and be aware of this and bring that up to business owners. Just because you plug in a zip code doesn't mean that you, from a retail sales perspective, automatically are impacted at 7%. Now, you set up your computer systems, and as a small business owner, I set up my merchant services account to collect whatever sales tax is required, and that's done at the individual business owner level. So I think it's important to increase awareness in that aspect, but again, that goes back to the individual business owners who are paying that sales tax to the state and earmarking it for St. Johns County, as opposed to basing it on a zip code.
Do you collect sales tax?
No, as a dry cleaner, we're a service company, and we're not required by the state of Florida to collect sales tax. But that's an option on my merchant services.
Yeah.
0%. What's your percentage? And you should plug
Do
it
you know of businesses up there that are doing that to get the sales tax into St. Johns County rather than Duval County?
I've not run into the issue when I've talked to business owners up there, but it's certainly a question that merits asking. Thank you for bringing it up.
As we wind it down, let me ask a fairly crowded race. There's several folks vying for this position. And talking to me as someone who may not know all the candidates, why would I consider you versus experienced folks that have better life experience or more life experience? Tell me why I should vote for Brian Iannucci.
Well, there are there's a short answer and a long answer.
How about the middle?
The third option.
I'll take C.
Option C.
Touche. You know, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I'm under no illusions that my life experiences have been long and vast. However, at 33, I've accomplished more in my life than I think most people my age have. From advanced education to careers, opportunities to open a small business and be in corporate America, having my children, being an author. The opportunities exist for me to take my experiences and the gifts that I've been given to impact St. Johns County. Given that, we're looking at a two-person race in this primary. I'm running against a two-term incumbent, and frankly, I believe that I bring to the table a couple of different things. Number one, I believe that that my message rings true with a lot of voters. My 10-step plan to a better St. Johns County, which is on the back of my palm card, and I'll leave that with you guys, has a lot of key points. Number one, I believe that representatives should represent for only 8 years. We don't have term limits in St. Johns County. However, if you become too comfortable and complacent in your position, you're just not effective. I've committed to only running 2 terms, and that's if the citizens of St. Johns County will have me. Number two, I believe my business experience, my common sense approach, and my courage of conviction are going to provide a new and needed perspective for St. Johns County. Combine that with my customer service skills, my communication skills, and the opportunity to lead and provide solutions, because I'm first and foremost a problem solver. Make me a better candidate than what we currently have here in St. Johns County. I supported Commissioner Stevenson 4 years ago for this position, because at the time she had iterated to several people, including myself, that this was her last term. Additionally, I don't like the direction of 4 sales tax increases proposed in the last 5 years. One of them unanimously approved by our county commission just last year. Philosophically, I think that difference rings true with a lot of voters in St. Johns County. So it comes down to the fact of, do you want new blood with new ideas that has the courage and conviction and leadership skills that I have? Or do you want the same old that you've had for the last 8 years? And I think that's a clear contrast in a Republican primary, which we seldom have. In Republican primaries, we're always arguing who's more conservative. I think we look at the 2 proposals, and I think citizens can make an informed decision based on that.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to thank y'all. Every morning I get the opportunity to read the record, the opportunities that exist for you to inform our citizens and our community. It's amazing. I have the utmost respect for all of you, and consider you friends, because I read your pieces on a regular basis and understand the impact that you have on our community. And I want to build a partnership. I think one of the ways that we can overcome some of the issues that we have with lack of communication in St. Johns County is to be forthright and open about the ideas and proposals that are out there. And if elected, I intend to do just that. And I want to use a social media approach, a media approach where I'm forthcoming with what I think, and we can have an informed dialogue at that point. And I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. That's something that I've learned and learned over several years. It's not an easy lesson sometimes, but I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. And when somebody has a better proposal or a better way or a better direction we can go in St. Johns County, then we need to look at that, and we need to make certain we're making the best decision. But I'm going to check my ego at the door. I'm going to give you a good faith effort and 110%, and nobody's going to be able to outwork me. Nobody's going to be able to outthink me. The opportunity here exists to make our community better, and as a team, I think we can move forward. And I look forward to working with you and citizens of St. Johns County to continue to make this the best place to live, work, and play in America.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.